Hello everyone, and welcome to Silver Screen Slam, where we praise those astronomical moving pictures we've all enjoyed over the past century. I'm your stellar host, Jake Brown, ready to launch you into orbit around the only known films to harbor my sincerest approval. So come join me each episode as we explore a galaxy's worth of past and present movies and discuss what excites us, what scares us, and what piques enough of our public's interest to get them involved as well. After each episode, we will ask you to voice your own opinion about upcoming movies we travel to via our social media outlets at the bottom of your screen. With that being said, obligatory space reference. As with each of our episodes, we'll discuss a movie that we feel warrants considerable praise for bringing many positive artistic elements to the screen. This may be a new release, a not-so-new release, or even one of the classics. In our previous episode, a few very special guests and I explored 1982's Blade Runner, declaring it a revolutionary achievement in the sci-fi genre, but also quite polarizing as well, with our opinions on the film splitting nearly right down the middle. In this episode, we'll explore a recent movie on a subject that has always brought a big smile to my face. The 2014 multi-dimensional journey through our universe, Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. But before we take off just yet, let's first talk some extras. In reflecting upon our movie for this episode, I can't help but think of the simultaneous praise and panning it received upon its theatrical release, namely in the category of scientific accuracy. And this has got me wondering, how important is scientific realism in this type of film? Now, I'll be the very first to say that a believable premise in a movie is essential to me. If a story can't convince its audience that the events unfolding are based in at least some sense of reality, how is the audience expected to connect to it in any way? But what kind of reality are we talking about here? In the fantastical epic Harry Potter, teenage kids can not only overcome the daily challenges of endless schoolwork, but can also fly on brooms and conquer evil sorcerers with a latent Oedipus complex. In the Homer-inspired Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, those sirens somehow turn Pete into a horny toad. At least I thought he was. In The Passion of the Christ, a man can endure torture and death only to be resurrected from the grave a few days later. And in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, our hero can survive a nuclear blast by hiding out in a household refrigerator. Are we expected to believe that any of this can actually happen? With the exception of Indiana Jones, yes. But why is that? Because with each of these scenarios, the storyteller has made clear up front the universe in which they have placed their characters and events, making the audience well aware of the rules being bent from the start. With works of art like these, the viewer is understandably able to suspend his or her disbelief for a short while, as the artists have constructed worlds with their own rules to follow, rules outside of ours. But what about works of art that don't have this luxury? What about a more scientific movie? Let's take Alfonso Cuarón's 2013 space thriller Gravity. In this film, Cuarón and crew have set up a story that is, in virtually every sense, based in our own universe. It's a movie that presents its characters, its visuals, and its initial plot as being set on a stage identical to the stage of our own reality. Considering this, it now has an obligation of sorts, and that obligation is to keep its characters and events grounded on this stage. If the artist strays from this reality without having a good reason for doing so, they risk forfeiting the believability of the story, the relatability of the characters, and the depth of the world in which these occupy. And unfortunately, that's exactly what Cuarón does, as he has his astronaut characters jumping from space station to space station, which, with a quick search through nasa.gov, is discovered to be laughably impossible. Without going into too many details, the film calls itself Gravity, and it gets gravity almost completely wrong. Unlike the previously mentioned tales, it is settled very snugly in our own world, and then turned right around and broken our laws. And while there are similar examples where this is perfectly acceptable, those examples almost always have a central message that's intended to transcend beyond our universe and therefore override it, if you will. Of course, anyone is more than welcome to stay captivated by a movie like Gravity, and I'll be among the first to say that it's one of the most visually gorgeous films I've ever seen. Also, I still respect Alfonso Cuarón as a filmmaker. After all, he directed The Prisoner of Azkaban! And I'll be more than excited to see whatever he throws at me next. However, I'm unable to take this movie seriously, not after it threw logic out the window of a house built upon that very same logic. So then, what is there to do? Well, it's more of a balancing act, really, as no story is ever going to get all the facts correct. Therefore, when presenting a work of art set in a reality like this, it's the artist's responsibility to create a type of harmony between the world they establish and their leniency with its rules. This way, the audience can better enjoy the scenery of a movie like Gravity, as the plot still sucked and the characters were boring as hell. Moving on. Listening to all this ranting and raving, you must be wondering, what about this episode's movie? And it's that kind of impatience that'll get you to our featured flick of the episode, the 2014 spacefaring epic Interstellar. Interstellar was directed by notable filmmaker Christopher Nolan and was also written by Nolan and his brother Jonathan, marking the siblings' 5th official collaboration together. The film stars Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jessica Chastain in a story set in the near future where severe famine and drought have caused the human population to become nearly extinct. The result of this crisis has forced society away from many of its traditional endeavors to instead focus on what little farming there is left to keep us afloat. Matthew McConaughey plays Cooper, a former pilot/engineer and modern-day family man in rural America. Cooper spends his days battling the intense climate change as well as the difficulties in raising a family in a world without an appreciation of the technological and scientific achievements of the past. So, as the story opens, Cooper's world looks apparently bleak. But it's when Cooper's young daughter, Murphy, makes the claim that a ghost in her bedroom is attempting to communicate with her that Cooper discovers a mysterious signal being sent to them through the natural force of gravity, a signal showing coordinates to the once-thought defunct NASA headquarters hundreds of miles away. Curiosity and a deep sense of exploration pull both Cooper and unintentionally his daughter to NASA, which has been funded in secret for years and has since sent 12 ships out into space to discover other potentially habitable planets. These ships have traveled through a celestial wormhole that begins in our own solar system and opens up in a galaxy far, far away. As it turns out, the ships have been one of only 2 hopes for our species' survival, and with Cooper's extensive piloting background as a factor, he is asked by a former NASA colleague, played by Michael Caine, to man a 13th vessel carrying a large amount of human DNA through the wormhole in hopes of making contact with at least one of the other ships and starting life anew. The more favorable of the 2 hopes resides in an unfinished mathematical equation. This equation, of which Cooper has been assured will be solved by the time his team makes their galactic round trip back home, would result in a potential floating city out in space, saving the lives of our own human race in the process. Let's take a quick look at a clip from the film.
Any trick to this, Doyle? No one knows. Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? To our galaxy. Here we go.
And that pretty much sums up Cooper's task at hand. But it's only a small snippet of what this movie has in store for its viewers, and that brings us to the good. What was good about this movie? Well, Interstellar's story opens with an abandonment of some of our most glorious achievements, only to stomp on this abandonment and push off of it into the skies. It does an eye-opening job of reminding us of the potential threat we can be to our own home if we're not too careful, but it also illustrates the grand feats we can accomplish as well. And it does so by celebrating our achievements and shining a light on their importance, while also paying respect to our formidable universe around us. The message of this film is a powerful and welcome one. It displays the positives and negatives of what we as a species are capable of, and it does so in a dazzling show of visual splendor. The stunning cinematography in Interstellar reminds us of how small we really are in this vast world, while making obvious nods to great works like Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey and the wonderful film adaptation of Contact. And what cosmic music! Hans Zimmer finally comes out of his artistic shell and presents us with something truly different from much of his other work. The music of Interstellar screams of the grandiosity of space, yet also sounds frighteningly personal, with its array of vocals, strings, woodwinds, and one insanely powerful pipe organ. This emotional audible powerhouse stands on its own, while also perfectly complementing the visuals and story of this fantastic journey. good qualities all around, right? But as previously mentioned, there's been some panning of this film by critics and non-critics alike. Some criticism of it has been directed towards certain scientific inaccuracies found in the movie. A few favorite astronomers of mine have publicly stressed the negative effect that certain understandable flaws have had on the film, such as the supermassive black hole found in the new galaxy not being bright enough to actually light or heat the potentially habitable planets, or how these planets wouldn't survive billions of years of flying debris being sucked into said black hole. Now, as much as I respect these awesome science popularizers and love hearing the great things they have to say about sci-fi movies and TV shows in general, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with them here, as I feel the film's scientific inaccuracies are balanced out by its abundant accuracies regarding wormholes, black holes, and gravity itself. And I do feel the story brings enough to the table to mitigate such concerns as well. But I will concede that the film does fall flat in some areas, such as the more bland dialogue scattered throughout. I truly enjoy Anne Hathaway as an actor, but her character's lines are often unconvincing, as are those by other characters throughout the movie as well. Maybe it's the acting, maybe it's the writing, but the characters simply don't feel very genuine. Unless you count space as a character, which I sure as hell do. And that was awkward. So let's switch it up a bit and get away from these discomforts by going to the public. And since our last episode, we had yet another comment from Twitter user Anthony C11749. And it reads, "Again with the popular movies, I'm getting real sick of this show. Will you change it up for once?" Look, while we really do appreciate our viewer feedback, this type of continuous, brutal honesty is going a little overboard. If you don't have anything nice or constructive to say, then you don't have to post about our show. Once again, we try to stand at the intersection of indie filmmaking and the major motion pictures of a more mainstream style. Our viewers can then decide which path to venture down from there. While we always encourage comments from our viewers, let's not take it too far. Now that that's out of the way, what is there to recommend to our loyal viewers who enjoyed Interstellar? That's right! What better than a recent film that shows a true appreciation of space exploration while also hovering at the more low-key end of the movie-making spectrum, the 2013 mockumentary-style Jovian thriller Europa Report, directed by Sebastian Cordero. Europa Report is about a team of astronauts tasked with a journey to the frozen Jupiter moon of Europa to find potential life under the surface. The movie is good in so many ways. I mean, the artists behind this piece worked very closely with NASA to ensure the science presented in the film was as top-notch as could be. Not only that, the story and characters express such realistic fervor that scientists actually have toward the potential discovery of extraterrestrial life. And the movie brings a quality, horror-style thrill to it that will keep you on edge all the way until the end. And by then, you'll be clapping your hands and thanking your lovable host at the same time. Spoiler alert, you're welcome. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Silver Screen Slam. Join us next episode and we'll be checking out the comedic tale of a man who's not the Messiah, the 1979 Monty Python classic Life of Brian, directed by Terry Jones and starring all the Pythons themselves. If you have anything you'd like to voice about next episode's film, or if you enjoy the show in general, feel free to descend on our social media outlets at the bottom of your screen. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jake Brown, asking you not to go gentle into that good night. Do not 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 go gentle.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
And to get outside more and watch some movies. Thank you. Just snot it a little bit. Reason for doing so, they risk the Ooh. And starting life anew. The more favorable of the two hopes. I had trouble saying that word. Picking my nose on camera. Scratching my nose on camera. Mom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Oh, and happy Mother's Day. I love you very much.